You're live.
All right, so today's March 15th, 2012. There's been a series of anomalies, for lack of a better word, associated with today. Misabi here has uncovered some serious issues and where they're reporting earthquakes and where they're not. And I think on a bigger picture, it plays out into a lot of things that we can look at. So this is kind of an attempt to get into some of those things. Starting on the region, Arkansas, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, southern tip of Missouri. This area has just been present in most activities associated with weather, central continent earthquakes, so just kind of bear with it. Series site, if you come into the front page and you start looking into the nodes associated with New Madrid fault line and others, it looks pretty normalized. And we're picking to hone in on the front side of this day. And if you go into the graphs are fairly normalized. This may or may not be an activity that was felt or so, but you know, this is kind of normalized for the graphs that we normally see on these nodes.
Little slower on the graphs there, dog. Lag.
Yeah, so you know, we don't attach much significance to what we see here, but these temporary nodes that we've been looking at, they kind of show a different story. And it started with looking at this Arkansas node because it was added on the 6th and added post what we call plume events or expressions from known fault seams or ancient volcanic calderas through the central Midwest and into the Appalachian chain, across Mississippi, Alabama, northern Georgia, the border between Georgia and South Carolina, and then up the Appalachian chain as it connects to New Madrid region. So it bears out in the temporary graphs where it's not present in the more normalized sites that we visit. So if you go into this Nellie, Arkansas, there's clearly an event in this day, starting roughly at what, 420-ish. If you go to any of these nodes associated with that new site from the 6th, you're going to see the same. This on the backside looks like post-event cracking of some sort. But that's present in all of the Arkansas nodes. But the other thing that's interesting is the other sites associated with the temporaries. And these temporaries were set up as a result of the earthquake. And what we have here is showing a common level of activity, starting at 5:20 and localized 1 hour difference from the Arkansas site. And you can come down this group of nodes and you'll see clearly that activity is present in Virginia at the same time that it's present in Arkansas. This one has the post-event cracking, and it also has a frequency wave of some durational event post the main event. This almost appears as though there's a direct energy exchange between Virginia and Arkansas, the way that these nodes track against each other. Anybody in the world had the ability to say otherwise, I'd love to hear it. We always open for responses to the stuff that we put out. So here in Spotsylvania Fire Department that's off of the main nodes associated with mineral. But once again, you have a cracking before, you have the durational event, and then you have pretty severe cracking afterwards. This might be close to an epicenter of a lot of activity. There's older Arkansas nodes, and they're showing this activity as well of this durational event in the first half of this day. So this came to me earlier in the day with Musabi's contribution, and I started looking at today's weather, and we've been noticing these plume events, maybe for lack of better understanding of how to express what we feel like we're seeing. And today's weather stood out at me. If you look at this region, kind of on a grand scale, you can see that there's not a lot of available precipitation here in association to cloud mass. You'll see that the day opens with some hazing in the south, some, I guess, ground clutterish. But as the day progresses, there's a static that develops at the surface of the earth. And as the day advances, you can start seeing the contours of the earth, and these regions that have been expressing plumes interact with the upper air mass. And it seems as though the air mass is erupting from the ground, feeding off of energy from the ground. Once again, there wasn't a lot of available moisture to the west. And as the day progresses, these storms that are kicking off whatever's coming off of the earth or through the separation in the cloud layers, the transfer between lower and upper, create what appear to be some pretty nasty storms. You can actually zoom down even tighter here into Tennessee and see what appears to be like a transfer of this flow or between the earth being low and that upper air mass. Unfortunately, the COD has to refresh now. And this will take forever because I've got multiple things open. We don't think that this day had really severe solar activity. There may be some stimulation or some tickling going on as a result of the solar flares recently, or the coronal mass ejections from the sun. But this doesn't look like it's a directly relatable to solar flare activity. This is more like the exchange off of the Earth going atmospheric in my perception of it. But as this image loads, we may be able to see there's some pretty distinct details associated with the contours of the Earth. And it's not just an air mass crossed the topography and creating uplift and fallout on the backside of ridges and mountains. It's a little bit greater than that. Here it is coming back to load. I apologize, this took so long.
It can be edited.
But yeah, so once here again, you can start seeing these contour lines set up where this current is flowing over the surface of the Earth. It actually reveals some contours that I find kind of interesting. As it progresses, there's what appears to be a series of circles here that go up the Tennessee, North Carolina line. And they kind of geographically set up with what one could consider a very old fault line and a very ancient caldera set. running up the spine of the lower spine of the Appalachian Mountains, here in Georgia as well. But then there's some other regions that kind of jump out at you. If I go and index here, there's kind of a trough region that is associated with the area between Mississippi and Alabama, right here. And it looks like there's a full-on expression of whatever this is coming up off of the ground on this side of the circle. The whole, it seems to kind of erupt or facilitate the rising of the clouds there. If you click over into Google Earth and you kind of zoom in a little bit, you'll see the same contour associated here, as well as that's kind of the spine that comes up on the Appalachian Mountains. And those regions that seem to have the circles are along here. Sorry, here. And you start digging around in here, start digging around through here, and you'll find that this is fault seam activity, old stuff, very old stuff. Its activity and expression has been a long time ago. A lot of the same in this region, as well as what we got going on the last couple of weeks in Arkansas. But, this is kind of how my day went. It started in the seismograph data coming from Usabi. I started looking for its correlation to other places, and it led to a chain that roughly extends from Arkansas through this region in Tennessee, and in the seismographs, at least in Virginia now. I haven't looked directly at Virginia to see what its day was like as far as the old visible satellite. I live here in Virginia, and we had kind of poofy clouds all day, sprung up and went away, and not very many persistent lingering contrails. They were kind of absent from the day. But interesting, this area right here, I find that very beginning kind of interesting. I'm sorry, it's going to take a minute to load again, but there's a region between Virginia and West Virginia that is shown post-Mineral Virginia earthquake activity. It's roughly north of Clifton Forge, between Stanton and Beckley, West Virginia. And earlier last year, when we tracked plume activity associated with the fault line in New Madrid down to Mississippi, there was a late event that occurred in this general region. And it looked like when this was loading, there was an expression in that area. Seems as though whatever it was kind of got exacerbated or pushed out by the atmosphere in the morning as the sun came into it. But I guess you can see contours. You can see what looks like current or fluid motion, I guess. To me, it's almost like these seams are emitting a static that is generating cloud, because there's not a whole lot here on the regional level to produce precipitation. So it came out of somewhere, came out of some rapid change in the atmosphere. Not that we saw precipitation here in Virginia, but the storms that we saw earlier in Tennessee. So that's kind of where I am, guys. Doesn't look like there was much in the way of the sun today, as far as its contribution to things. Some activity here, but not like we've seen in recent weeks. That's about it.